Got it. Okay, yeah, I'll leave it up for a little bit.
Okay, perfect. So, welcome to the Sabiha Khan Show. Today we have Sam Simmons, the founder of Non-Fungible Ventures. He's an investor, and most importantly, he's a member of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Um, yeah, so
Amazing.
very
Thank you.
excited
Thank you for
to
having me.
welcome Sam, GM, Gang Gang.
Gang, gang, baby. GM, GM. Thank you for having me again.
I just want to start this story. Because I wanted to do this podcast. I was going through our chats again. I was like, when was the first time I texted you? And I found it and then I screenshotted it. Um, yeah,
You can
here's the
NFT that
screenshot.
screenshot.
Yeah, so I said, hey Sam, I'm from India and have recently been fascinated by NFTs and digital art. Can you help me get educated in these areas? And you're like, hi Sabiha, thanks for reaching out. Here are the various resources that have been most impactful for me that I normally recommend to others. Newsletters. And then you send all these links. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
those are still the links I use for anyone else today. And I think that's ultimately my goal as someone in the space is to not only educate myself, which is an ongoing effort and will always be an ongoing effort, but to educate others as well. And that's really where this all begins and ends is the education aspect of being able to get involved in the space in a way that is most fulfilling to them and able to do so safely with intent. So any way that I could advance that, I'm very much happy to do. And to be honest too, I was actually I was talking to my wife just before I hopped on here, and I was telling her that we were about to speak, and that you were the first person that asked me to be on a podcast. So as perhaps important
Ooh,
as that conversation was to you, it was very important to me too, as you were the first person that had thought of me in that way, frankly. So I'm really honored to be here.
that's awesome. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get to like talk to an ape like real time, and how cool would that be? And honestly, I'm really grateful to you because you gave me all these newsletters, and then I got to know that people actually do respond to DMs. Then there was this person called Divya. She's from India, and I found her also on LinkedIn. And I asked her, and she actually sent me the Twitter handles of good NFT profiles, right? And that's how I got started with NFTs, and now I'm balls deep in NFTs, and I'm a girl. So
There's no coming back now.
yeah, there's no coming back. So
Yeah.
tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I very similarly, I kind of I peeked down the rabbit hole and then took a dip in and never ended up coming back up. So my background is not at all in crypto or NFTs. For several years, I worked with and went on to run a content production company in the poker space. So I'm based in Las Vegas, Nevada. Um, we had the company I was working with had produced and distributed major poker events like World Series of Poker, Poker After Dark, High Stakes Poker, and others. They created a poker game. So I've basically been around all things TV production, media, gaming, social streaming, and things like that. Just very much multimedia. I had been an investor in cryptocurrencies, primarily like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on, the very vanilla ones, for a handful of years. But for me, that was always on a purely investment basis. I never took the time to necessarily understand the nuances of cryptography and the technology that underlines crypto and everything that it has to offer. Um, and never cared to, frankly. It takes a lot of time, energy, attention to detail, and so on to get deep into that space. And I apologize, my camera focus is cutting in and out, but we'll just carry on with
It's
it. Um, so then, so then that all was good. I all the while had been investing in various startups. I'm an angel investor in about 20 to 30 different types of companies across different industries. For the time being, none of them being crypto. And then it wasn't until about middle of last year, call it NFT summer or whatever it was, that I was actually a little bit late to, where I got into NFTs for the first time. And which you'll appreciate this very well. My first big NFT purchase was a gutter cat, and you know how expensive an asset that is, especially
yeah,
where with Ethereum where it was back last summer, and unlike buying into Bitcoin or Ethereum or what even any shitcoin out there, there was a feeling that that brought to me, and a feeling of fulfillment, a feeling of there was something, this asset that I could call my own, that was unique to anyone else's asset out there, that I could make my identity. I can't make Bitcoin my identity, but I can make my gutter cat my identity and build something around that. And then of course the aspects of community. So being able to see, like when I remember, it was actually funny enough, it was a day, and I forget what the announcement was, but they had announced GutterCon shortly before that. They basically had this big Discord party where they had DJs come in and had a big event in the GutterCat King Discord. And I bought my cat, and then very quickly was engaging in that and seeing how welcoming the community was, and seeing my sale, and then everyone saying like gang gang, great buy, blah 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 blah. Like it was like a drug actually, where it's like a dopamine spike. I'm like, this is for me. So again, very quickly I bought a rat a couple days later so that I could then get one of the mint passes for what ended up being the pigeon or the dog. But then I then bought the dog as well for the mint price of 1.5, and it all escalated very quickly. And then really took the step beyond that to building a portfolio of various NFT assets, and then coupling that with my background as an angel investor, really not only from the perspective of actual NFT projects and buying JPEGs that tie into communities, but then also looking at NFT businesses and looking at NFT technologies that in my opinion are going to change the world and are really going to change existing infrastructure and standing industries that have been the same for tens, if not hundreds of years. Really finding ways to participate on a consulting and advisory basis, but then also investing in those as well. So that's where I'm at today, and that is what non-fungible ventures is. I'm working with a handful of different projects on getting to market. So that's on a consulting advisory basis, but then I'm also talking to basically 30 different behind the scenes stealth startups, businesses, and so on about investing in the world of Web3. So really just riding the wave right now and having a good time doing it is how I occupy my time.
That's really interesting that you say that Gutter was like your first expensive NFT. Was it like your very first NFT? The Bengal tiger cat
That
that you
wasn't my
had
very
as your POC?
first. My very first NFT was, I don't know if I maybe have never told anyone this. Maybe a couple people. My very first NFT was a dope Shiba, and that's only
Ooh,
because that's a throwback. I think that's it's officially rug now.
yeah.
But that was me without any sort of education or context for what I wanted. Browsing OpenSea, I knew that Doge, Shiba Inu. I know there
Those,
were memes
yeah.
about it. So my very non-scientific analysis was, well, this is also a dog and it looks cute, so maybe this price will go up eventually. And funny enough, there was I had bought a couple of those. They were stuck in my wallet for a number of months, and then there was a random, sometimes influencers will solicit like a random floor sweep of like a dead
Yeah.
project. That I had some listed, and they ended up getting swept away in one of those influencer pumps that then fizzled out shortly after that. So I caught that window, thankfully. So I have no more dope Shivas, but for whatever it's worth, that will always be my first NFT project.
That's amazing. I mean, like you're very right. When you enter the space, right, and you do not like you have no education. Even I kind of bought stupid Solana projects, and they look like shit. I mean, it was actually
Yeah,
now I was like, yeah, this look cute. I mean, I can't mint it, and
yeah.
so
I'll just
Solana is not that expensive.
quickly. I want to commiserate because I've been scammed once, knock on wood, so far.
Mhm.
But it was from a Solana project where I didn't have DMs closed. I was on my way out the door, and there was a stealth mint, and I ended up clicking the link and doing it because I was supposed to go to the dentist, and I was already in a bad mood about having to go to the dentist. But then I was just distracted and not paying attention. I thought I was in the public channel, but it was in a DM. Long story short, I ended up getting scammed for like $5,000 off of Solana project. So that's like I'm very like not I'm not anti Solana. I still buy
I
some, but I'm just
even
like not a big
even I
Solana
am
person
anti
anymore.
Solana. Yeah, yeah. Even I'm
Yeah.
not a Solana person. Like, there was like a good Solana. Oh, let's not bitch about projects. Like.
Yeah.
Let's not go to that part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, but even I'm
So
not
sorry,
a
I
banana
cut
fan.
you off. Please continue.
No, no, it's okay. Yeah, like when I entered the space, like Gadakat just like called me. I was like, yeah, oh, like this is like a soul project, and like my first good NFT purchase in Ethereum was the goats, the kit that I
Hmm.
have, and I just love it. But then the next purchase that I did was the Gutter Rat, and it was very expensive. But I don't know. I'm really lucky that I got it at zero point 0.5 Ethereum, and that's like it. And then I bought a pigeon and working towards the dog. I mean, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'm a big proponent. And so like my approach, I don't have the answers. I've made money some places and I've lost money a lot more places than that. And you hope that the one times you win money end up being more than the times you lose
yeah,
money because you can't get it right every time. But to me, it's all about, and I've posted a couple times about this. It's all about sticking to a thesis. And to me, projects like the Gutter Cat Gang really check all the boxes to me on what I look for, and in my opinion, what other people should be looking for in a strong NFT project. When you think about all the different aspects of multimedia that they're looking to play in, everything from comics to TV shows, and then thinking about the token and building an ecosystem around that, potential play to earn, metaverse application, merchandising, celebrity influence, all underpinned by a
you're into
super strong
sports.
community. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
they're
Yep.
into sports. I
Exactly.
mean, yeah, you're like 100% right. They like check all the right boxes, and I would say that I don't know like why it's not mooning, but it's very close. I can like feel it. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
it's like in the second quarter, but Gada is gonna moon.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
think
one
so
of those
too.
good projects. Plus, the thing is that because they have the subspecies, right, they still have that accessibility feature that people like me can get into the gang. And
Yeah.
the coolest thing is that you get to say like gang to random people on Twitter, and then they become your family, and it's just fun.
Exactly. It's actually
That's
funny.
like the
This afternoon, I might be. I don't know. I haven't gotten the call yet, but I might be playing in a pretty a poker tournament with a lot of crypto people. It's like it's put on by Stormex in association with the company that I had previously worked with, Poker Go, and I'm going to be wearing. If I do play, I'm going to wear my Bitcoin Gutter Cat Gang hat. So I'm hoping to get a couple shots with like representing Gutter Cat Gang while I'm rubbing shoulders with all these like big brain, smarter than me crypto
yeah
people. So yeah, it's a cool brand. I like the people. I like to rep the merchandise. It's very comfortable, and I don't know. It's
the
just it's
best
just
thing is
it's
that
a
you
great
get the
project.
IP rights.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're
I
good.
have
No,
messed
yeah.
up. So the thing is, I'm saying that the best thing is that they give you the IP rights, right? That's like the best thing about them. You could like
Yeah.
put it on your. People are putting it on coffee. People are putting it on random posters and stuff. I mean, gutter is like the safest and the smartest move, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know anything, just like get into the gutter and like kind of hold. That's like a
Yeah.
good move.
Yeah.
So
I think that's right, and it's funny. I'd seen a video. You probably saw it on Twitter, but there was I think it was in Puerto Rico or something where there was someone owns three gutter assets, and they had made like the outside of the club like illuminated with
uh,
with the gutter pictures to promote the club. So you're seeing all these great use cases and practical
yeah.
examples of using that IP for marketing purposes. And I do think that's become my one of my barometers in how I give people advice on where to buy is yes, you expect things to go up eventually. You wouldn't buy something that's going to lose value over time, but at the same time, the space is in reality very frothy right now. So I'm not buying anything anymore. I'm holding the assets I have and taking profits where I can while also looking for anomalies perhaps that may be great opportunities to find value where other people don't see it. But all in all, like my focus is on enjoying myself right now and being able to leverage my assets to have a good time with people that I like, and that also is what Gutter is to me. So yeah, it's nice that you get to use certainly nice you get to use it as a brand, and the same thing for the Bored Apes. But I'm also just enjoying the ride with other cool people and getting to have that experience along the way. So that's that's a long way of saying just I think that's going back to the sort of education piece and how to get involved in the
Yeah,
space. It's really about having fun, and that's where I think as a gutter is a great place to be as well.
absolutely. I read it on Twitter that if you're like if NFTs are if your bag is kind of stressing you, you're over leveraged and you're not doing it right. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense.
That's
So
right.
but honestly, I'm doing this podcast because I have like one singular question for you, and that's why this podcast is happening. Tell us how does it feel to be an ape? How does it feel?
Yeah, I given the importance of that question to this podcast, I want to give an equally important answer. Um, I think it's a double-edged sword, and this may not be the answer that you're expecting. I think it feels great, first off. I can say I'll say transparently that I personally spend more time in the gutter community than I do the Bored Ape community. So I know that that's always been sort of the talked up aspect of holding an ape is having that community and so on and so forth, which I think is still great, and there's a lot of crossover between the two. Um, but nonetheless, I end up spending more time with gutter, so I can't really attest to the community aspects of holding a Bored Ape. I think that it feels good to feel important in a very egotistical sense. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of danger attached to giving someone credibility just because of an avatar that they may or may not have had the resources to pay for. And I say may or may not have because in some instances, they may not even be theirs. They could just be using the JPEG, and we've seen examples of that recently with very high-profile giveaway accounts where people use other people's apes, and people don't bat an eye. They see ape retweet ape or see ape follow ape, and there's really even the Twitter verification thing can be manipulated at this point. So, it's I think it's nice, but I also treat it as a great responsibility in a sense, just because it does me a disservice to see other people leveraging the ape brand in nefarious ways, and doing it to exploit others because they're given that blind credibility because of their profile picture. So I take it upon myself as more of a responsibility to act with a certain level of, I guess, public character, but then also ethics, to represent that brand the right way. Because
Have you
much
caught
like,
somebody? Like, did you catch anybody? Like, oh,
yeah,
that's not your ape, Mister.
yes, I actually have. So it's actually funny. That's a great question, and it brings up a story that I haven't thought about in a long time. My business partner, whose name is Richard, doesn't matter, but that's just his name. He bought an ape back in September, actually before I bought my ape, and by some coincidence, the next day I got a follow from a guy who was using that ape as his profile picture, and I obviously know very intimately that that was not his ape. So I end up, and in fact, after this, I'll send you the DMs because it was actually pretty funny because I was trolling the guy, but was going back and forth with him over, oh, how'd you get that ape? What'd you buy it for? I see you bought it yesterday for this and this amount of money. That's super cool, and just kind of needling him a little bit and feeding into it, and he was playing along with it, and then I had that gotcha moment of and then he played off that it was a scam. And again, it was an account with such low followers. I was just having some fun with it. But it does happen. It does happen quite often. I think it's rather innocuous when it's someone who doesn't have a following and they're kind of just using it just arbitrarily. And in fact, there was another. I bought another ape a couple months ago, and then someone sent me a guy on Instagram who was using that ape as his profile picture. And I didn't go out of my way to chase the guy down. It doesn't matter to me, And it frankly wasn't an ape that I'm using as my profile picture, so it's like not a brand for me, at least not yet. Um, so it didn't matter to me, but it happens quite often, and I think back to the whole point on the responsibility of having an ape, one of the downsides of community ownership is that in an indirect sense you're responsible for whatever members of that community are out there doing or what
Yeah.
they're out representing. So as much as I'm actually less worried about people utilizing apes as their profile pictures when they don't own them, because there's blockchain technology allows you to see through that, and
Yeah.
and identify culprits fairly easily with certain tracking and whatever else. But it's more so the individuals that hold apes that you like are that are low character, honestly, low integrity, and utilize that brand for irresponsible things, I guess, whether it's launching rug projects or whatever else it may be, because it gives everyone else that represents that brand being the ape brand in a negative light. So yeah, it's a complicated question because yeah, it's nice and like the apes are seen as the pinnacle if you want to put them next to
Yeah.
crypto punks of the industry, but frankly, I think there's some people across all communities that I wouldn't necessarily say should be at the pinnacle of the community. So much like I have a certain expectation of others to maintain the Ape brand, I seek to maintain it myself in everything that I do in the digital public forum.
Yeah, I mean, owning something which is the way you said it, like pinnacle of the NFT world.
Yeah.
I mean, but how do you feel like being a part of something that has culturally shifted the way the world sees NFTs? Because I feel that the CryptoPunks are obviously like they have kind of like built everything on which we are playing.
Hmm.
They're like the builders, but BAYC is like the spotlight, right? They've kind of they're like that cultural pop shift, right? So how do you feel about that? Like
Yeah.
owning an asset like that is also like owned by celebrities like Eminem and Jimmy Fallon. And by the way, like what are your thoughts on Jimmy Fallon's Ape?
Yeah.
Like it got like
Yeah.
a lot of attention, and I think
Yeah.
yeah,
So quickly to answer both questions. So I think it's a great observation, and that's actually the reason why I bought into Bored Apes when I did. I'm not going to pretend like I was some, you know, sharp
OG.
their first. Yeah, I'm not. I'm certainly not an OG, and I came in pretty late. Late being like August, September. Trying to
How much
September, I
did you
think.
buy it for, right? In
Uh,
September?
the two I bought were 39 and 36 ETH at first. So it was expensive, but they've on an ETH basis at least. I would have to run the numbers depending on what ETH was then, but gone up since then, like pseudo 2.5, 3x. And then bought another one a couple months ago for 85 ETH. That was a smoking jacket pipe combo with the devil horns, which I think there's only like five of them in the entire collection that have that
I've
trait
seen that.
combo. Yeah, so it's a high value one potentially, and I think I got a
Yeah.
pretty good deal on it, even at 85 ETH. Because the floor after 85, I think, was like 120, and then the rest aren't even listed or it goes up from there. So you look at potential brands who may get involved, like a Playboy that comes to mind first, or others, like you could see that becoming rather coveted down the road. Um, all that said, back to the question. I got involved in September largely because I saw the tide shifting that way, and the one the two that come to mind for me first and foremost at the time were Von Miller, who was at the time a Denver Broncos linebacker, then went on to play for the LA Rams, and Steph Curry. They were buying
Mhm.
apes and making that their profile picture, and to me that was a bit of a aha moment where you saw that cultural shift you reference happening. And so I couldn't necessarily predict that you'd start seeing Eminem, Jimmy Fallon, Paris Hilton, Snoop Dogg, uh, I'm trying to think. Gwyneth Paltrow,
Yeah,
which is
even
probably the most
Emma.
wild card one to me. That I was like, where did that come from? But I couldn't have predicted that it would go to that extent. But nonetheless, I saw momentum in how apes were penetrating mainstream culture, and selfishly for my ego wanted to get involved because obviously it's cool to like be able to say you have some connection to Steph Curry no matter how remote and distant that may be, but on an investment basis certainly like there's a limited number of these. So if you assume that, and that's kind of how I see it to this day, where there's a lot of talk. NFT Twitter can become a bit of an echo chamber, where there's a lot of talk of floor prices, and when the ape floor goes from 115 to 100 to 85 to 70, it's like, oh, the sky is falling. But if you think of a guy like Steph Curry or Jimmy Fallon, like they're not sitting there sweating the floor price. Like Steph Curry is not going to see a drop of 30
28.
ETH even and think like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to sell. So every time an ape changes hands from I mean, what a lot of people would call a paper hand, but what I would just think of as like a trader or an investor, perhaps someone that doesn't have the net worth that Steph Curry has, and then it goes to a Steph Curry who's not even thinking about selling it at any point in time. That serves as a positive and takes an ape out of the market, so to speak. Where as that continues to happen over time, you're going to see
Because they're
slowly
not
the
gonna
floor price
sell it,
continue to
right?
rise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Correct. So I think it's an important trend on the cultural aspect, but also on the economical investment aspect of realizing that as more celebrities are getting involved, there's going to become a limited number that become available, and you're going to start to see over time that floor price and value continue to rise with a finite number of these even ever in existence.
That's really interesting that you brought that up because, like, my next question was related to this. I'm seeing a lot of, so I like kind of hang out on Twitter all the time. So, recently I've seen a trend where these apes are having conversations on Twitter about selling their ape, and
Hmm.
their rationale is, oh, like who's gonna buy like there are 10,000 of them, right? And then who's gonna buy at such flow? Like how much more can they rise in value, right? It touched 108, right? It's around like 85 or whatever. I'm not checked the
Yeah.
floor prices, but like so like what is the sentiment of and people are also like asking like, oh, this because if somebody who's like very middle class or they're young and they got early in the ape game, right? And now
Hmm.
like they have so many like so much profit to take, like they're unrealized gains, right? And they're saying that they wanna sell it. Like should they sell it? What's your take on that? I mean, why this is like a recurring trend all the time now.
Yeah. I it's hard to give an answer in a blanket sense because everyone's situation is going to be different. And if it gets to the, I think my answer would be if you're having those thoughts, you should probably just sell, just because you you'll be more secure financially. And there's the lower entry point of mutants where you can kind of have your cake and eat it too, where
Yeah.
you could sell buy a mutant for less than half the cost and still for 90% of it have the same perks and privileges of being in the club without having to hold this monstrous asset that's
Mm.
weighing down your portfolio. Um, all that being said, like I think I think people lose perspective on the markets a bit, where it hasn't even been a year since these things launched. It's been like 10 months, and everyone acts like this is like it's been this huge, which has been a meteoric rise, but there has to be correction, there has to be maturation, and my thesis for buying apes is really built upon a 2, 3, 4, 5+ year timeline. And I had my phone here, not to be rude, but because I was running numbers just to make sure that I wasn't speaking out of line. But like, so whatever floor is like 200, you know, I is 85 the floor today? I'm not even checking it. But let's say it is, and Ace at around 3,000. I don't know. That's whatever, $250,000. So to me, like if you consider the potential median floor price of an ape at $1 million, and
Yeah.
then the $1 million per ape on average, then times 10,000, that's a $10 billion business, which yes is massive, but if you consider the value of like the OG preeminent original NFT brand, like I don't think a $10 billion valuation is unrealistic. So again, depending on rarity and other factors, if you look at the 250K value today versus what I think of as attainable being a $1 million asset, that's a 4x in potentially a handful of years. Like that to me is a worthwhile investment. So yes, and I think a lot of, and that's where people get a little bit distracted by the next shiny object in the room, where that liquidity could probably get you better than a 4x in the current NFT market by chasing whitelist and look and minting other projects and buying up 10 Wonder Pals being the hot new project and being able to flip those for one ETH gain each, and then rinsing and repeating. Frankly, I don't have the time nor patience nor attention span to be playing that game anymore. Like I'm not buying anything new. I'm not day trading. I'm looking macro, looking at larger investments. So I would rather hold things that I'm very comfortable with in their long-term trajectory, and that to me, by definition today, is things like apes, is things like gutter cats, things with strong fundamentals, a proven track record of execution, and confidence in the long term. So that's my thesis. So to go back to the original question, to how I don't get distracted by the noise of those conversations, and it's easy to get in your own head as someone who owns a few apes to say like, everyone else is selling. Does that mean I should sell? I think that goes back to like the Warren Buffett line, which is be be fearful when others are greedy and
Greedy.
be greedy when others are fearful, or maybe the other way around. And that's what it is
Yeah.
to me. So I don't get distracted by the noise. I also don't get distracted by when it does run up to 115 and everyone's like ape coin,
Ooh,
all these things. Like I don't get distracted by that. Like to me it's a long-term fundamental analysis that I'm going to be holding for the long term, and I don't get worried about the rest in between.
I think that answers my questions pretty well. Yeah, I mean it's all about like how like what horizon actually are you seeing stuff in? And even I feel that apes are undervalued. I mean, that's a big thing to say, and but they are because they are like the as you said, they are the pinnacle and whatever brands because people think that how much more can it rise in value and how much more can like how many brands can actually come and like buy a single ape and build a business
Hmm.
around them just like Adidas did, right? But I think there are lots of brands and there's a lot of money. So um,
Yeah, I will say I think I wouldn't call apes undervalued. I would, in fact, some ways they're overvalued. And I think, and it drives me nuts because a lot of times I feel like ape holders are Bored Apes' worst enemy because they tend to. I mean, everyone likes to pump their own bags, but they have unrealistic expectations of reality without fundamentals being at the forefront. And by that I mean the example I go back to was the Super Bowl, where it snowballed from Eminem and Snoop Dogg happening to buy apes a bit before the Super Bowl, particularly Eminem. I think Snoop Dogg had his for longer, but that somehow spirals via Twitter conversation to apes are going to be at the forefront of the entire Super Bowl halftime show. Mind you, this has been and here in the US, this has been a national tradition for the past 55 plus years, and there's now an expectation that this new symbol that's been around for the past 10 months is going to usurp this national pastime to become the forefront of the entire Super Bowl halftime show, which is just a ludicrous proposition. But you end up with this tendency and this almost like this upward spiral based upon this hype cycle followed by a disappointment when that doesn't end up playing out. So my point is like I think apes need to understand that apes being like the holders of apes need to understand that this is long term, this is gradual, and maintain perspective on where we are in the maturity of not only the project but the industry as a whole. Because it can be so easy to get caught up with the people you're surrounded by in this echo chamber of NFT Twitter and other discords and channels, and hype yourself up into thinking that maybe we're more important than we actually are in the grand scheme of things. And sorry, I hate that I keep talking so much, but I will say on the flip
no,
side
it's a
that I think
podcast. You need to keep
yeah, well,
talking.
I think that gutter cats are horribly undervalued for that very reason because I think
Yeah.
that there's a number of things, and I've actually had tweets drafted about this that I've then had to delete because I don't want to get too controversial on Twitter, especially now that I've kind of doxed myself. Where if there were announcements that Gutter Cat Gang has made, that Bored Apes made, it would just be like everyone would be losing their minds. There would be apes flying off the shelves, and that's just the nature of apes being very good at pumping their own bags and getting super hyped over things. Whereas Gutter's a little bit of the younger brother, younger sister right now, where they don't exactly get that same attention. But that's where fundamentals kick in for me because you're seeing this trend, and albeit there may be a little bit of a second fiddle sort of dynamic where Gutter is kind of doing the same thing after the fact and it becomes less important then. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, you're seeing the same sort of roadmap and ability to execute. But at the same time, right now, if you assume an 85 ETH floor price, gutter cat is whatever one
It's
seventeenth of what bored apes
yeah,
are, and the secondary species are 1/18th of what bored apes are. So if you consider the upside, you can consider it has half the upside of what apes have. And so in theory, gutter cat could be a 48th floor price one day. That's
that's
an 8x versus a potential 4x on bored apes. So
mhm.
that's why that's really, and I'll be outright. I own like 8 gutter cats now. I own 3 apes. I own 2 doodles. I own a one of one crypto mori. Like I'm for sure pumping my own bags, but I also want to. I'm doing so and explaining my own analysis of how I see these things versus doing it just to run the hype cycle for the purposes of inflating floor price, so then I could exit the positions.
The best part about this podcast is that I do not have to ask any questions because you're just asking all of my questions. And the analysis of the Garagat that you just did, I did the same analysis, like not exactly in the same words, but I was like, you don't understand. Like, I just told this to a friend that the Gara is actually like the next BAYC. And I said what I said. I mean, they are. Because
I hope so.
because not in the terms of floor price or stuff like that. It's just that it's going to be a very strong brand. And holding Nagata is like a smart, as I said, it's the smartest move in the NFT community today. If you like do not have so much funds to buy into the apes or even the cool cats or stuff like that, I mean, Gata is a good move. Also, Gata just partnered with Puma with
Hmm.
Cool Cats and a couple of other cat projects. And the way you said that Gator is like they're not hurt that much compared to the apes. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, because yeah, one of the cat holders just said that it's not that big of a deal because Puma's kind of like partnered with other projects too. And but I was like, oh no, but it's Puma, right? So I
Yeah, but at the
definitely
same, but sorry, there I know I know exactly the hold you're talking about, and I know that there was a response to that from someone else, which is Adidas did the exact same thing. And they partnered with Pixel Vault, they partnered with Bored Apes, and they partnered with G Money. And at the
fun
time, everyone's
comics.
like, "Oh my God, Adidas
Yeah.
so good! They're doing this all the right way. Love Adidas. Let's blindly mint whatever they put out." And then Puma does it, and it's like, oh well, they partner with multiple projects. Like it's such a hypocrisy in terms of how you approach one versus the other. And I feel Puma honestly because like they're kind of getting fudded already, but they literally took the same entry path as they did as Adidas did, and they were celebrated for it. So it's just it's hard to win in this space, and people are very short term oriented, and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I
No.
know that exact I probably know the exact thread you're talking about, but it's funny how that works.
Yeah, it's really funny. And also, the way that you answered my other question, like what other projects do you hold? So you said that you have doodles, you have a one of a Mori, and what's up with just the copying and the plagiarism of artists and stuff like that? Because I think what women project also kind of copied from other artists. Uh, I don't know. I'm not remembering the name,
Yeah,
but
Sabet or whatever, however you pronounce it. Are you talking about the Crypto Morris thing?
yeah, the crypto Maurice thing, and also like before that, there was this women project, and
Oh yeah,
there are the
Crypto Chicks or whatever it was.
crypto chicks. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, I don't have a strong opinion on it, honestly. I think that it's like anything else, where, and this is, I'm going to like paraphrase Gary Vee by saying this with his viral interview, but it's like any new toy that you put into a room, people don't exactly know how to use it yet. Some people are going to use it for good, some people are going to use it for bad, but how it's used doesn't necessarily give any sort of moral judgment on the toy itself. And the same thing can be said as like the internet being, that's people talk about scams and how we shouldn't engage with crypto because it's just a scam and people are going to lose money and get hurt in the process. But like, and again, to I don't I'm not so blind that I'd put these in the same category, but like pop-up ads were a thing where people got scammed for with fake giveaways or spam emails of Viagra pills and other just crazy things. So like, it's this is not new. It's just there's a lot more on the line, I think, because I think people get burned easier because by the nature of decentralization, not to be rude, but stupidity is exposed. I started it off by saying I got scammed. Like I've had that stupid moment, and it was a learning experience for me. I turned off DM since then, and I'm religious with my security checks at this point. The other weekend, I was at a dinner with my in-laws, and the OpenSea scam started playing out in real time on Twitter, and I left dinner to go handle this. Like it's just the reality of the world we live in right now. But I think with the maturation of the space, you're going to start to see improvement, whether it be around community policing, best practices, whatever you want to call it. So back to the point on plagiarism. I think it's just one of those things where we're trying to walk that line of Web 2 expectations with
Web
Web
three,
3 um,
Wild
Web three
West.
decentralization and just like how things the new way of the world, so to speak, with how the industry works. I don't and I have a certain gripe with projects that are clearly half baked, but people buy into it. But I think the worst thing that you could do is try to tell the market that it's wrong, because the market is the market is the market. So in the case of like those apes, OX, bored apes, whatever, where they they changed around the traits and
The
put them
yellow
on a yellow
background.
background, yeah,
Yeah,
and then
it
called it a
really
movement.
hurts
And
my.
same thing with crypto funks. Like I think that it's not a statement. It's just I'm not going to use the word cash
Stupidity.
grab other than I just used it. But I think it's up to the market to determine what they see value in. And I personally don't see value in that. So even if I thought I can make a quick buck off doing it, it would be doing a disservice to the industry for me to buy into it. And I think people at some point need to get a macro perspective on things, because my concern is that, and this is not just sort of knockoff projects, but also just a lot of like the cookie cutter PFP projects today. I think we're doing ourselves a collective disservice by giving these projects a platform and making them successful over and over again, when we all, I think, whether we realize it or not, especially when it's not in our bags, can see and understand that it's a zero sum game, and it's unlikely that those end up being projects that really make a difference when all is said and done.
I I completely agree. And we are actually at 42 minutes mark, and I don't want to like put so much stress on you, so we'll just like quickly wrap it up. So I have this rapid fire round. Are you
Yeah, sure,
ready?
let's do it. Let's do
So
it.
so I just say a word, and you have to say a word associated with it, like whatever comes to your mind.
Yes, I like
Okay?
this. I like this a lot. Let's do it.
Okay. Kanye West.
Ooh, Pete Davidson, only because there was a music video that he put out this morning that was very controversial of him live burying Pete Davidson, which he's a crazy person, but I respect the art. Pete Davidson.
Elon Musk.
Tesla. I drive a Tesla. Like the guy a lot. I bought a Tesla in 2014, and if I had put that money into Tesla stock instead of a Tesla itself, I would be a lot richer right now. But let's not talk about that.
Kevin's. The new NFT Kevin's, right?
Oh, that exactly the last conversation we had. I guess one word: stupid. The last conversation we just had is exactly case in point on what's wrong with the space right
That's what I'm
now.
saying, that I do not have to ask any questions to you. Like, you're just answering all my questions. That's great.
Yeah, stupid is the word.
Beanie. Uh, the punk beanie.
Um, problematic. I don't. On the record, I want to be careful what I say. I think we should be, whether it be me as an 8 PFP or whether it be a CryptoPunk. I think we need to be very careful about who and where and what information we're getting, and understand there's always reasons for that information behind the scenes, whether it be an interest in the business, whether it be ownership in the project, whatever. So that's my word is problematic.
Dollar gang.
What is it?
Dollar gang. like
What's
the
that?
gang token, the like
Oh,
a
gang
token.
token. Um,
Yeah,
dope.
dollar ape, the ape token.
Also dope. I think it's I know this is rapid fire, but here I am providing context to all my answers. I think they're doing things the right way, doing it in a legal sense, but also in a longevity sense of building out an ecosystem for these tokens. I think a lot of projects have a problem with creating a token for the sake of the token, but not actually having a use case behind it, rendering it whether whether it's actually worthless or it's in theory worthless, but it is worthless. So I think dope to both.
NBA Top Shot.
No comment, only because I've never used it. I'm not a big fan. I try to get into the NFL all day. Or actually, I did get into the NFL all day, but I'm not a big fan of their AML KYC processes. And yeah, so I think I say no comment, but I'm going to change that to groundbreaking because I think that was a great entry point for a lot of people who are getting into the NFT space and perhaps served as a gateway drug, utilizing mainstream IP.
Okay, last one, poker. Before you answer that, like I have read your, I kind of like read almost all of your articles. Like, yeah. So there was this. You made an analogy between pokers and NFTs, and I love that. So yeah,
Mm.
poker.
Uh, Degen. Else. I think it's controlled chaos. It's gambling. It's educated gambling, and I think and it parallels very nicely with poker, and I think that's kind of why I've resonated so deeply with NFTs. Zeneka's another guy. I don't know him personally, but he's a guy with a poker background who has also translated that skill set into NFTs. So yeah, I think it parallels nicely, and I'm glad that I had that experience before I dived into this nose or head first.
Amazing. I think it was a really nice conversation. The best part that I liked about you was you think so much like an investor, which I really, really like because even like you, I'm not into minting any new shiny object. I'm like, yeah, I'm like a person who would always buy from secondary. I mean, of
Hmm.
course, I would like mint a project that I want to support, but I would like, yeah, let's just see how does that project do, and let's not like buy Kevin's or you know, stuff like that. I mean, stuff like that is coming out all the time. If it's fun, if it's for fun, then it's okay. But it was
Yeah,
really nice talking to you.
yeah. Likewise.
Thank you for
Thank you
doing
for
this.
having me.
Thank you for doing this. And
Of
anything
course.
last that you want to say?
No, I think and to kind of answer to agree with and then add on to what you said in regards to minting versus secondary. I think I'm never going to be the one to tell people what they should or shouldn't mint or how they should engage with the space. I think the nature of decentralization is such that people can engage with it however they want. They don't have that centralized person or people to be the ones to say what they should or shouldn't do. I think there's types of people that are the types to be minting and chasing white lists and flipping and grinding on this kind of stuff. There's a lot of money to be made there, but I think the advice that I would part with is a, like I said earlier, have fun, and B, don't get in over your head, and never commit, never spend more than you practically can afford, because it's a very volatile space in general, and it's more important to have fun than it is to risk a lot of money, and that's my mentality, and I think it should be for others as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sam.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having